Hi everybody, I'm Alex Anderson, and I wanted to share with you a really cool new tool that I found for piecing. Okay, in the olden days when you wanted to piece a quilt, you would have to, and it made of blocks, you would have to draft out the block, you would have to figure out well, you have to make templates, that's how far I go back. Then later on you had to figure out the magic numbers, like when to add a half an inch, when to add 7/8, when to add 1 1/4, and you just figured it out. And it wasn't hard to do, it's what we did. And we worked on 1/8 grid drafting paper, graph paper. Okay, so books started coming out then because people saw the opportunity of saying, okay, well, look at this block. If you want it in this size, this is what you cut it at. And you didn't have to think. I honestly believe a lot of education was lost along the way there. But here we are today. We know there's a bunch of really cool places that you can go to get the cutting numbers you need, etc. Especially in patterns and books. Well, speaking of books, you probably know how much I love this little book that C&T came out with. In fact, so much I wrote a blurb on the back. And the first thing was, I wish I had invented it. Seriously. What's so cool about this book is that there are 110 quilt blocks, but each quilt block is presented in 5 different sizes. So, okay, I want to make a 3-inch, then I know what to cut. I want to make a 6-inch, etc. So recently, C&T has come out with a new product that I was kind of questioning. I thought, okay, so I got myself a box of this, and I called Amy, who is the publisher at C&T, and I said, okay, so what makes this so special when I can probably find the blocks in here? And this is what she told me. These particular block tools come with one side, it has the block, and then the other side, it has the cutting numbers. All right. So what's so great about that? It's super great. And I found myself totally intrigued with the whole thing. So I started pulling out all these different blocks that are in this block tool. These are 4-inch finished. But let's say I turn this over and I can do it in 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch, 12-inch, and 36-inch. So I just started playing with it. It's kind of interesting, but maybe not. And it's interesting what would strike my fancy and what doesn't. Let me show you what struck my fancy. I pulled these 2 cards out and I went, oh my gosh, look at the secondary design that's happening here. I would not have thought that had I just looked at these blocks as individual units, right? So the next thing I did was I went to my copy machine and I made a bunch of copies. So I want to see what it's like when it's more than just the 2 put together. All right, so here we have those 2. And now I'm going to turn it around. And I can see this huge grid starting to happen. I also see these centers that are exactly the same center. All right, I could see some real interesting things going on here. You've got the darks right here. I like how when these things intersect, they aren't quite dark, but they're certainly darker than this, right? And then my next thought was, what if I turn it like this and I do it on point? Well, I don't think I like that very much because you get this kind of really strong horizontal and then vertical. I don't think I like it. I don't know. I've got to play with it. But with these cards, you have the ability to go through and select different blocks and see how they all play together. So let's see what we've got here. One of the things I would be looking at probably are the proportions within the block. And this has a nice proportion in my humble opinion. Let's see. There were a bunch of star blocks I started putting together too. I don't think I like that. Here's a star block. I mean, this is, you could just have endless fun with this. Imagine if you were at your quilt guild and you gave people like 3 or 4 blocks and you say, have at it. Okay. I love how these line up right here. Okay, so yes, the cutting instruction is also in this book, but you don't have the ability to butt them up next to each other. Also, in this book, they don't necessarily all have blocks that are compatible. In this particular box, they are all compatible, okay? This is set one, which Amy suggested we all start with, and there's a number two that will all be compatible within that block, in that particular box. I believe it's a 4-patch that's coming out. And then there's number three. I'm not sure what that one is. There's some other really cool things in here. So let's go back down to this camera. Okay. They have little trivia cards, I guess you could call them, that will help save the day. And within these trivia cards, you have different things. So for instance, here we have side and corner triangles for diagonal settings. If it's a 6-inch pieced block finished, the side triangles will be 9 3/4, of course, cut like this, side triangles. And then for half square, and then for the corners, there we go. And then for the corners, this is what you cut, and then you go corner to corner. And again, the sizes are 6, 8, 10, 12, 36. This also tells you, if you put it on point, what the measurements are across. So you don't have to go measure and hope you get it right. This shows you how to use the block chart, but if you're familiar with this, you'll know how to do it, all right? Oh, then this is my page. So this is when weirdo shapes don't line up, and that happens over and over and over in piecing. You don't just say close enough and call it a day. And then how to sew half square triangles, yardage for backing, finishing widths for binding, or just it's a treasure trove of information. Figuring out yardage, more yardage, rectangles on this side, squares on this side. And then here's another one, okay, where every other block, pretty standard for a sampler. All right. Then this one I thought was really cute, the heart quilt. And all they're trying to do is to get you thinking, okay, here is a color bar layout. They have all the cutting numbers there. But I got to tell you something, when I saw this one, I almost started weeping because I thought it was so wonderful. Here are all these different sampler blocks. And then it has this, it's called bookend layout. I'd never heard of that before. And then it has this diagonal area through here. And I just think it's a lot of fun. And as you endeavor to a new project and want to play and try different things, this comes with a thumbs up from me.